Thank you for joining today's enlightening panel discussion on the hottest career trends shaping the future of the workforce. This session will delve into the rising demand for national certifications in three dynamic fields: opticians, cannabis, and drone pilots. Our expert panelists will provide insights into the importance of these certifications and how they can open doors to in-demand jobs. So thank you everyone for attending. Today's session is Hot Trending Career Panel Discussions. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of our SETI 2024 sponsors, especially CIW, our title sponsor, for their outstanding support, and also AMCA and ProTrain for their generous contributions. Your partnership has made this event and will make this event a huge success. There's a few housekeeping rules for everybody to be aware of. This session is being recorded. Links to the PDFs of the presentation and the recordings will be made available to you, whether you are visiting us live or will watch it after the effect. Attendees are automatically muted when joining. Use the Q&A box located on the lower navigation bar for all questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the session. We would ask you to please use social media and using our hashtag SETI 2024 and repost for everybody to be aware of SETI. As well as for year-long, we invite you to join our SETI alumni group. This allows you to stay connected to your colleagues nationwide all year long. I would like to welcome our panelists and give you a little bit of background about them. Dr. Warren McDonnell, a friend, is a nationally and internationally recognized educator, consultant, author, speaker, and musician. After high school, he studied opticianry at Durham Technical Community College and started a successful optical practice at the age of 24. He had a passion for learning, and he realized the need to expand the education of opticians and dedicated his life to it. Shifting gears from practice to higher ed, he continues to actively contribute to opticianry education through continuing education. He is currently the CEO of McDonnell and Associates LLC, a consulting firm that works to improve individuals and organizations across the optical industry, higher ed, hospitals, colleges, and universities. He has always been passionate about his roles in opticianry and believes it's important to help develop future leaders in the profession. Welcome, Dr. McDonnell. Next, we have Brad Tucker. Brad is the current CEO of UAV Coach and Drone Pilot Ground School, two of the leading education and training brands in the dynamic and growing drone industry. With over 15 years of experience in online education and ed tech companies, he's played pivotal roles in companies like Ascend Learning, National Academy of Sports Medicine, Gold Coast Schools, and other brands. A former professional baseball player, Brad's discipline and teamwork skills transitioned seamlessly into his professional life. He's a proud family man, residing in Alpharetta, Georgia, with his wife and 3 children. Brad holds an undergraduate degree from Pepperdine University and an MBA from Arizona State University. Welcome, Brad. And last but not least, Mike Schroeder. He is the BD and Corporate Outreach Manager at ProTrain. Mike has 30 plus years of experience in higher education and workforce development. He spent 25 years working for 3 major universities, holding positions from CE Director to Associate Vice Provost to Dean, and built over 20 programs and well over 100 non-degree programs. Mike is an industry expert in continuing and professional education and extended education, including international programming. Welcome, Mike. So with that, without further ado, I give you Dr. Warren McDonnell.
Betty, thank you so very much for allowing me to be with you today. And I want to impress upon the audience the importance of what SETI is and what ProTrain is doing. There are different pathways today I began my career as an optician. Now, the first time that was brought to my attention, I had no idea what it was. But I visited and saw what was going on, and I became enthralled. Opticians are found in just about every city and town in America and beyond. They greatly impact the well-being of those in need of vision correction. Opticians design, manufacture, fit, provide eyeglasses, contact lens, and other optical devices of low vision, for example. May I have the next slide? We need opticians. As the world of opticianry changed, in the past, most opticians were independent business people. But now, as the corporate world has expanded, we need more and more and more and more. We have 6,700 openings projected this coming year. The median annual wage is right at $40,000, and at this point it was $39,610 in 2022. The employment is growing 4 to 7%, and the potential is great. And there are other titles that opticians carry. Certified optician, which is what we're training you to become. Contact lens tech, dispensing optician that fits and dispenses eyeglasses to the public. In some states, there are 22 states that require a license. Techs, optometric technicians. Some of our trainees work in optometry offices and work side by side with their local eye doctors. Let me have the next slide, please. Listen, if you've never been to an optician, if you need eyeglasses, there are people all over the world that can't make a living. We take it for granted, but right now there's considered 7 billion people who can't work because they don't have a simple pair of eyeglasses. Opticians help design and fit those eyeglasses, and we take the prescriptions from ophthalmologists and optometrists and design that into a usable vision device. Now, many of us specialize in areas like contact lenses, low vision, and some do laboratory work, manufacturing lenses and frames. Okay. This is a Walmart Vision Center. Where are we going to work? America lives in Walmart, I think sometimes. The last time I was in line, I felt like I was going to have to pay rent. Today, we can find opticians in so many places. CVS, America's Best. Many opticians work in specialty areas in optometry or ophthalmology practices. I have a former student who just became a national sales director for a large frame manufacturer. The opportunities are limitless: practice management and bundling. Next slide, please. What education is required? Depending on the state, there's such a wide variety. Opticians have always been trained primarily through apprenticeship. There are requirements in the licensed states, specifically, usually 2 pathways. You can attend one of the nationally accredited opticianry programs and complete a 2-year degree and a practical training session referred to as an internship, or you can do an apprenticeship. Apprenticeship lengths vary in the states. In my home state of North Carolina, it's about 3 years, and then you have to sit for a state licensing exam. There's a list of all the states that are available later on in the program. Now, in most states, the academic requirement is limited. High school diploma must. If you're going to be an apprentice, you got to have a high school diploma. Unfortunately, this method limits the learning outcomes. Ergo, the reason that I sit here today. There needs to be different levels of training. And we're going to offer that through ProTrain. I'm very proud of what we're doing here because the apprenticeship has been limited to the knowledge that the trainer has, and that's limited. We find out it's not working very well. Now we know that a higher trained, more prepared person will provide better benefits and less error for our employees. The national standard for us is the American Board of Opticianry and the National Contact Lens Exams, and we train you to be successful in those exams. Next slide, please. The ABONCLE is the national certifying body for opticians. Spectacle dispensing is done by the American Board of Opticianry. The NCLE itself certifies those who fit and dispense contact lenses. It is our goal and our plan. We have developed two extensive programs that will train you successfully to complete both of those examinations. Next slide, please. We've got a number of excellent faculty. Mrs. Gardner reached out to me to help develop this program because she saw a huge need. We've got faculty from states all over the country that are ready, willing, and able, myself included, to help answer questions. Now, in an apprenticeship, that doesn't work very well. You've got someone training you, and you would be surprised how often apprenticeship becomes reading a book and taking an exam. We're going to do a better job than that. Let us assist your employees to be the best they can be. Next slide. I think I've gone beyond.
That's okay, Warren. I want to thank you very much because Warren cuts himself short. He really is a national and international expert on this. He goes around to conferences and speaks and helps guide, and that's why we reached out to him to be our subject matter expert in trying to prepare your students for certification. As he was talking about apprenticeship, on the job training, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person that's training you in the apprenticeship knows everything that's on the certification exam. When a student takes an official program that meets the blueprint for the exam, that way we feel like we are contributing to a national standard where these students then therefore could go anywhere they want in the country and be prepared for these jobs, where if they got trained on the job, they may not have gotten what the individuals at the next job that they get expect them to know. So Warren has been instrumental in helping us do that. So thank you, Warren. And with that, I would like to turn our program over now to Mike Schroeder.
Thank you, Betty, and thank you, Dr. McDonald, for the information about a program that's well needed across this country and many job opportunities. So thank you again for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cannabis program. Before I jump into cannabis, let's answer a couple questions. Cannabis, drug or medicine? Cannabis is actually a medicine, but it can be abused. It helps the community when used properly. It hurts the community when abused. That's why career training is necessary to make it safe. Next slide, please. So here's a beautiful map of our country. Jump into the next slide, you will see the recreational states here in green and the medical states here in blue. The reason for showing this is that as you can see, many states across the country have adopted law and put into law the use of medical or recreational cannabis across these various areas. And as many of you know, this is also a topic of the current presidential election, where both candidates are looking at making it legal federally and changing the class component piece of the drug. Next slide, please. Cannabis is here to stay. As you can see from that map, as of December 23rd, 40 colleges in the United States offer degree programs in cannabis studies. 40 colleges. And these are national colleges as well. Cannabis advertising is now allowed on Facebook and Instagram, changing some of the requirements of social media. And communities are making extensive revenue from cannabis taxes. In 2024, the revenue from cannabis was $43 billion. 2023 to 2024, a 2.89 increase. Hemp, on the other hand, which has been around for decades, had a market valuation projected in 2028 to be 29 billion. As you can see, cannabis has quickly caught up and surpassed hemp. Next slide, please. When you start to break cannabis jobs down by sector, and this is data from Vance 2023 jobs report, you can see that cultivation, the agriculture side, is 31%. However, retail, 23%, ancillary jobs, 20%, processing and manufacturing, 17%, and the wholesale distribution and testing is just around 10%. Next slide, please. So let's look at that the biggest piece of the pie. Those top three, agriculture being the lead, cultivation jobs and curriculum. The salary ranges in those cultivation jobs and projection of what they currently are, as well as what they continue to move towards. A director, 100K to 150K annually, base salary. Manager, 65 to 90K base salary. And a trimmer, 16 to 20 hours, typically meeting the minimum wage or higher within each state. Here at ProTrain, they've worked with national entities to create the most comprehensive cannabis portfolio of programs. The cultivation course curriculum includes 14 hours of content. It's great for entry-level skills, indoor and outdoor methods as it relates to the agriculture and cultivation side, as well as executive level business startup and management. And the course applies to both hemp and cannabis. Next slide, please. The dispensary jobs. As you look at those, directors making six figures in that 100K to 130K range before bonuses. Managers, 65 to 100K, and a bud tender, not your bartender, but a bud tender, $17 to $28 an hour before tips. There is a dispensary course curriculum that's been put together with 13 hours of content, with advanced medical training, store setup, compliance, which I will touch on in future slides, and executive level business startup and management. Next slide, please. Manufacturing and other job opportunities. We often talk about the variety of different manufacturing jobs across the country. Cannabis is another one of those and one of the newer manufacturing entities. An extraction director can make between 90K and 140K depending upon the state. Edible chef and the hospitality side, developing and designing new ways for cannabis to be utilized, 45K to 75K. Extraction technicians on the science side and the manufacturing side, 45 to 90K, and packagers at these manufacturing facilities, typically making above minimum wage, $16 to $20 an hour, and higher in some states. There is an Extraction Pro course curriculum that contains 13.5 hours of content. It goes through entry-level and advanced practical skills utilizing videos and step-by-step guides. It goes into the executive level business startup and management. And again, this course also applies to both hemp and cannabis industries. There's additional curriculum and content that ProTrain has put together, such as Cannabis Cooking Pro. If the cooking side is of interest to you, there's 12 hours of content, entry-level and advanced practical skills, executive level business, and again, it applies to hemp and cannabis industries. So those that are looking for a variety of different recipes or information about how to utilize cannabis within your baking as well as cooking techniques, this is a great course to start with. Business Pro, 13 hours of content. This one goes into running a variety of different levels of the cannabis industries and being an entrepreneur. Next slide, please. There is also a non-credit master of cannabis. If you're interested in becoming a guru in the cannabis sector, it contains all content from all courses. approximately 42 hours of instruction, covering again, entry and advanced practical skills, many videos and step-by-step guides, employee qualifications for all jobs in all sectors, executive level business startup and management, and it does apply to both the hemp and the cannabis industry side. And if you're just wondering and just want to kind of get your feet wet and see, dip that toe in the water and see what is out there for cannabis and what might be possible for my institution and what should we be offering in our region. Cannabis 101 is a great place to start. 14 hours of content. It's light course and designed for patients and caregivers, especially in the medical fields. And then again, goes into job information for all sectors and is great for a CE director or CE personnel to take a look at this course and/or many personnel and many entities within your public sector and students. Next slide, please. All our course content covers these important details. There is state-specific information that includes requirements for patient registration, medical practitioners, cannabis work permits, cannabis business license, hemp business license, and these last two, extremely important, the cannabis and the hemp laws. And our curriculum is continuously updated and kept up to date each month so that as those laws change and as more states are added or more states change their laws, we are continually making sure our curriculum is updated as ProTrain does this, not only with this program and course, but I know that they do it with each and every course. Next slide, please. So why cannabis? Is it right for your CE unit? As you start to think about that, some things to consider. How does the course content align with your academic programs and also your regional needs? Take a look at what your institution is looking at offering or currently offering, and look to see how you can complement that and add value add. Look at your regional needs. Have conversations now with your workforce offices. As those workforce offices are starting to look at what Department of Labor is beginning to look at of approval of cannabis variety of different levels of those jobs that I just mentioned. So what courses or areas do you want to start with? How do you educate your local workforce office that these are important and that there are jobs and careers for individuals? Look up the data, go in prepared, talk to your local workforce office, and begin to set the groundwork and plant the seed so that you can be the leading institution in your region when this becomes popular and a high demand job need. The industry is expanding and we will continue to grow both at a state and a national level. I encourage you, test the waters now with a course or two, have those conversations, begin to plant the seeds. Thank you. And with that, I turn it back over to Betty Gardner.
Thank you, Mike. I mean, our presentations keep getting better and better. No stress there, Brad. But even with our last presentation that we had earlier this morning on AI, artificial intelligence, so and I'm sure that you out there in continuing education, you're struggling and looking for new programs, new channels. I call them buckets of money. You need to find revenue streams, and that's what this entire SETI conference is about this year, how to find different revenue streams. With AI, we teach our people how to use artificial intelligence for good and not for bad. And it's a whole new program that we in CE can offer and train and help people get jobs. Even with cannabis, as Mike was talking, think about not the traditional, Cheech and Chong. What if you're old enough to remember who that is? But no, how can I turn it into an industry? How can I carve out a job for somebody? For example, I grew up in a very rural area, very poor area, and basically they do crops and raise cattle, pigs, etc. That's where I'm from, and it's not a very affluent area. So would cannabis not be a great thing to bring to rural areas that are agricultural in nature and help these people learn business skills or enhance the ones they have, be a part of a team, become a CEO of your own company, and make this good and get rid of the stigma And I realize some schools will, some schools won't. But just think about all the jobs that you can create, all the different categories that Mike had talked to you about. The possibilities are endless, and we are on the edge of trying to make sure that we help you create additional revenue streams. So, yeah, Mike, I was getting off on my little pedestal there, but I've enjoyed every session, every speaker so far. So, with that, Brad, I will turn it over to you to fly us home.
Thank you, Betty. Appreciate the introduction and the pun there, flying us away. As I am going to talk about drone training. So thank you to the ProTrain team for having me today to be part of the SETI conference. But first, before I dive into the details of drones and drone pilots, let me just take a brief moment to explain to the audience, as you may not be familiar with a drone pilot in terms of what who they are, what they do. So a drone pilot essentially is anybody who is operating what's called a small unmanned aerial system or a small unmanned aircraft for commercial purposes. Commercial does not necessarily mean that they are getting paid to do that, although most of the time it means that. But you could be doing pro bono work for a charitable organization, flying a drone. That would still classify and qualify under what's called commercial work. So the reason I share that is to say, if you are going to be flying drones for commercial purposes, you actually need what's called a remote pilot certificate, otherwise known as a Part 107 license. And that is issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. So that certification is required for anybody who's going to be flying drones commercially in the United States. That qualification, that certification ensures you are flying legally, that you're flying compliantly and safely in U.S. airspace, because you will be sharing the skies. Drone pilots are sharing the skies with both other unmanned pilots as well as manned pilots who are flying helicopters and planes and other things. So just wanted to share a bit of context there before we actually dove in and answer the question of why drone training. So why should you consider drone training for your school, for your program, for your community? First and foremost, as Betty mentioned, drone training is a relatively newer category. It's a newer program. And so new programs equals new students, which opens up the door for additional revenue opportunities. So that is one exciting reason to consider drone training. Two, and in no particular order, drones are fun. A lot of students have a passion and enthusiasm for the latest and greatest technology. Many students have a passion for aviation. Drone training really combines, the best of both worlds in terms of aviation and technology. And the easiest way you can think about drones, those who perhaps haven't touched or flown a drone before, these are very advanced, basically flying computers. So they have a lot of different features. They have really high feature cameras, high resolution cameras, ability to capture and process a lot of data. And so it is an exciting blend of aviation and technology. It is a high growth and high demand industry. I'm going to share a little bit more about that here as we go along in the presentation. It is a very innovative space because it is evolving at a very rapid pace. The technology continues to get better. It continues to get more accessible. And so it's certainly an innovative space to be a part of. And last but not least, the ROI can be very high. The barriers to entry to become a drone pilot are really not that significant, but the opportunities once you have your remote pilot certificate become numerous, which I'll share a little bit more information about that today as well. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the demand for commercial drone pilots. So anytime you have a graph showing, upward growth to the right, that's usually a good thing. What this graph is basically saying is what the projected growth rate looks like commercially for the drone industry over the course of the next 6 to 7 years. So projected growth of about 7% cumulative year-over-year growth between 2023 and 2030, with the industry getting up all the way to about a $55 billion industry by the time we reach 2030, which is exciting. That type of growth opens up a lot of opportunities, especially job opportunities. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for drone pilots. According to Research and Markets report, the drone service market is expected to add about 100,000 jobs by 2025. That's globally, worldwide. In the U.S., the U.S. is one of the larger markets for drones in terms of the amount of companies utilizing drones and the penetration of drones. And so a significant portion of those jobs will be in the U.S. What's interesting about drones is it's still a relatively novel profession. It's still relatively new. And so there's actually not any data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics around drone pilots. However, we do have access to quite a bit of data, and the income and salary expectations can vary quite widely for a variety of reasons. An example of that is if you are in more of an urban environment, such as Los Angeles, California, where there's a lot of population, there's a lot of construction, there's a lot of growth. Certainly, there's going to be more opportunities in an area like that for drone pilots and more demand compared to Jonesboro, Arkansas, for example, where there may just not be as much growth, may not be as much infrastructure there to support drone pilots. But certainly, the growth across the country is very robust. But salary-wise, drone pilots can expect to be earning anywhere from around $30,000 a year upwards to about $70,000 a year. And the top 10% of drone pilots are earning six figures plus in many cases. You can command on a per day basis when you're doing project-oriented work from anywhere from around $800 to $1,200 a day. And so very quickly, you can see how that can add up to, if you're working on multiple projects per month, what that can look like in terms of income opportunities. So a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity for drone pilots. Next slide. So this is what I was mentioning earlier. You know, what you have in the drone industry, like many other technology industries, is the hardware side of the industry typically takes the lead. You know, 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, drone hardware was introduced into the marketplace. And so after hardware started to get introduced, then you had the software side of the industry start to take hold. And then from there, the services side of the industry really starts to come together and starts to grow. And that's exactly what has happened in the drone industry. And on the services side, you actually need people, for the most part, to provide those services, to enable those services. And so drone pilots really make up a large chunk of the services category in the drone space. And so as of 2023, the services sector represented about 80% of the overall drone industry, which is exciting because that means ultimately there's going to be a wide variety of opportunities for drone pilots on a go-forward basis. Next slide. So let me share a little bit about what's behind the explosion of drone usage. I talked about the technology. The reality is the technology has been around for a long time, but like technologies in many industries, as the technology has become cheaper to produce, as it has become cheaper to buy, both on a consumer level and on a commercial level, you know, it has become much more accessible to a larger audience, to a larger market of end users. And so that is certainly a part of it. But specifically as it relates to commercial operators in terms of their use of drones, the biggest benefits for them and what's driving a lot of the usage is reduced operating costs, first and foremost. It is oftentimes cheaper for a company to hire a drone pilot in order to conduct inspections or some mapping of property, some other things. There's a variety of use cases. It's oftentimes a way to save costs. And of course, companies on a for-profit side certainly are looking to save costs and get more efficient. Time savings is another area of usage, or benefit, I should say, which is driving usage. And so as you think about, for example, if somebody was going to be inspecting a tower, you know, back in the day, they would have to send somebody up all the way to the top of a multi-100-foot tower in order to conduct an inspection at the top of that tower. That would take a lot of time. There was a lot of risk management that had to go into that to actually send somebody up there. Nowadays, you can hire a drone pilot. They can literally fly a drone up to the top of the tower in minutes, compared to, you know, much longer than that, and do it in a much safer, more precise way than the way that they've been able to do that previously. So time savings, I mentioned safety improvements. The data capture with drones is very precise as well. So as the software has gotten better and easier to process, the precision of the data that you're able to capture with drones has really improved over the course of time as well. Reduced environmental impact. I'm not sure if anybody has been to a drone light show before, perhaps in place of a fireworks show, for example, but easy to understand the difference of a drone light show, which doesn't have smoke, it doesn't have noise and other things, compared to a fireworks show. There's also a lot more entertainment value that drones can provide compared to a basic fireworks show. Nothing against fireworks, but there's certainly a reduced environmental impact utilizing drones for purposes like that. as I mentioned, accessibility has grown, and it's very versatile across many industries. What's great is somebody that trains to become a drone pilot, it opens up a wide variety of different avenues for them to apply that learning in multiple different industries, which means additional income opportunities for drone pilots. And I'll share more about that here in a moment. Next slide. So um, what's the value of remote pilot certification? Touched on this a little bit before, but the ability to go from certification to employability and income, that does not take very long. It's not a very difficult process at the end of the day. It is you have to take a 60-question exam at a proctored testing center. And if you do that, you get 70% passing rate, then ultimately you can get your remote pilot certificate and become a drone pilot. Rapid growth in the industry, I've already touched upon that, so that's certainly something to celebrate regarding drones. The diverse applications of drones, I'm going to share some insights on that here in a moment. I mentioned the exciting blend of aviation and technology and the ROI behind that as well. So we'll jump to the next slide here. So this is just a sample size of the various different industry segments and opportunities that I mentioned. So when you get your remote pilot certificate, when your students get their remote pilot certificate, it opens up a variety of different industry use cases for them. And some examples of that are real estate, real estate photography, taking real estate videos from aerial, an aerial point of view. Drone pilots typically are working with many real estate agents and others in that world to support their ability to market and sell home properties. So that's one area where many drone pilots, start there and get into that industry to begin generating income as a drone pilot. You can see the picture there. Agriculture is a booming area of both need and opportunity for drone pilots as well, to work with farmers and other agricultural operators to support crop yield management, pesticide production and distribution. So there's a variety of use cases where drones can be much more efficient, much more cost effective in the world of agriculture as well. Think about environmental conservation, the ability to go up and demonstrate in large rural type areas the opportunity to see things from an aerial point of view in national parks and other areas where it's much easier to identify potential hazards and opportunities to help address certain environmental concerns. That's an area of big opportunity as well. I'm going to jump over to the other side here and just mention a couple of areas. Medical equipment and supplies. What you're starting to see now is drones are starting to deliver medical supplies and equipment in situations where there's a rapid need to deploy certain types of medical equipment and supplies. That is something that has been tested and has been proven through a lot of different use cases with drones and is starting to become much more widely adopted at scale. So you'll start to see drones in that particular area and drone delivery services as well. Some of you may have experienced drone delivery services if you've ordered anything from Walmart or Amazon and they're operating drone delivery services in your area. That is a growing area of opportunity for drones as well. Not everybody's a fan of that, seeing a drone fly, over your house or into your backyard. But ultimately, it is likely something that is going to grow and continue to scale here moving forward and allows for improved logistics and transportation of goods and services, which ultimately just can help things work more efficiently over time. So many different use cases for drone pilots, which opens up a variety of different avenues for them to make income opportunities within the industry. Next slide. And I'm just touch on this briefly in terms of what the actual curriculum looks like with Drone Pilot Ground School and with ProTrain, but we cover all 120 knowledge concepts that are that students would be tested on for the remote pilot certificate exam. We do that through mostly 70 plus based video-based lectures, very high quality, high definition video lectures. We also supplement that with weekly video lectures with one of our master instructors. They essentially operate like a virtual classroom, like a study hall where they're there to answer questions and address students and help them, navigate their way through the program. We have practice exams, we have quizzes, we have a variety of different study tools, flashcards, and other things to really enhance their learning experience and retention of these concepts. And we study basically everything from drone rules and FAA regulations to drone flight operations to actual training exercises, photography and video tips, and other things that just really help give you a full picture of what you need to know in order to pass that remote pilot certificate exam. So all that being said, I'm going to pass it back over to Betty so we can jump into our Q&A segment.
Thank you all. This has been very enlightening, and I can see how SETI is creating building blocks all the way from artificial intelligence to talking about cannabis, drone, opticianary, and all of these different career fields. What we're doing is we're building the different revenue streams, and if you just, imagine everything we've been talking about so far, you compare that with, other programs, and certificate programs paired with maybe a certification that can lead to a strong student. And especially, um, just listening to Brad, he really flew us home and took us there because you can almost pair drone, as he said, to any industry. And as we get into workforce and military presentations, you can see what you're learning on these into how you can offer that to those different, what you already have set up. If you work with workforce development, if you work with military or military spouses, all of these are opportunities that have various career paths that can help your student, but it can help you because we all know whether it be quarterly end of the year or halfway through the year, we all have someone that we have to report to. How many students did we serve? Did they pass the class? Did they pass the exam? What were your expenses? What's your profit? At least when I was working at a major university, I had to be accountable. And way back in the day, and I won't tell you how long ago that was, a lot of that I had to do by hand. But now we have CRMs and fancy registration systems that can produce these reports for us. But I'm very excited and very proud of each and every one of you and your presentations. And we do have a few questions. And I'm going, and there's several, so I'm going to go and not put one person on the stand all at one time. So I'm going to sort of mix these up. So, Dr. Warren, you're on the hot spot first. Where do you see the eye care industry in the next 3 to 5 years? And how can the ABO and NCLE certifications be part of that growth as it pertains to, um, you know, the retail, training, CE? Where do you see us going in 3 to 5 years in trying to get people certified? And you're on mute, Mr. McDonald. Dr. McDonald. Okay, while Warren is unmuting himself, I'm going to go to another one. Okay, well, Brad, I think yours was on top of mine because you went last. So, you want to tell us more about the legal ramifications of drone use and the FAA regulatory requirements, and if an operator pilot causes damage to the structure, people, or a drone-on-drone collision?
Yeah, good question, Betty. As you can imagine, the FAA, similar to, if a manned pilot, for example, had a history or a track record of violations, things along those lines, then they can ground the pilot, they can revoke their license. Same thing exists in the drone world. So the FAA can confiscate your equipment, they can confiscate your drone so they can ground your drone. They can revoke your remote pilot certificate or your license. So those are just a couple things that the FAA can do. Another thing to be mindful of, if you crash a drone and you cause damage to public property or to an individual, for example, you obviously open up yourself to the potential of civil claims as well, in addition to fines that may be in place for certain types of violations as well. So there's certainly a monetary and financial consideration that you need to have to make sure that you are flying drones in a very safe and compliant fashion. Beyond the FAA, there are specific state and local regulations and rules in place as well. So we always educate our drone pilots to make sure and double check not just things on an FAA basis at a national level, but to make sure that to check within their state and within their local jurisdiction, whether or not there's any other specific drone rules and regulations that they need to be mindful of in order to safely and compliantly fly their drone in those cities. But those are just some examples of what the FAA can do if you are a violator of some of those drone laws.
Okay. And I actually had a question when we were planning this session, and I Googled it because Google knows everything. I said, Can a person get a DUI while flying a drone? Can you answer that?
It is that's a good question. I don't think they have anything like in the world of driving with your driver's license if you have a traffic violation with a DUI. However, it is within the rules and regulations that it is not allowed to be operating a drone under the influence. And so it would fall under that other category, which I just mentioned. They may not call it a DUI, but if you were caught and you were in violation of that rule, you can get your license revoked. You could be subject to fines. And so you just open up yourself to those types of penalties if you're operating a drone under the influence.
So no matter what we're doing, we just need to be responsible adults.
Absolutely.
Mhm. So Mike, speaking of being a responsible adult, we have a cannabis question.
Okay.
Okay. Does training cover what individual states have as restrictions or regulations that may differ from state to state? Because as we offer this training, and we hope that many schools will want to offer this revenue stream, but they need to make sure that they're being mindful of what is being taught to their students.
Great question, Betty. Yes, the cannabis program follows rigorous updates. So as those legal ramifications change from one state to the other, those legal ramifications as well as other compliance requirements are updated. And I'll even go farther about that it covers things not just from state or even federal compliance piece or legal ramifications that have changed. It could go into as minimal as a business license permit change has occurred in a particular state or manufacturing license component pieces. So each month, our course content, not just in a cannabis course, but there's many courses within ProTrain that have implications where things could change from state to state. We make sure that those things are updated because our courses are developed by experts in the field of cannabis research, medicine, growing, cooking, extraction, business, but also the legal components. So to answer your question, yes, those are kept up with. And in those particular courses, some states change those more regularly than others, while others have not changed them in several years.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And Brad, you mentioned a very strong growth across many commercial sectors today, as we discussed. Is there any one sector that stands out as the biggest need for this technical application? And that will help our viewers know perhaps where to start.
Yeah, good question. Construction is one area that comes to mind. Of course, construction is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, within the United States. As we all know, you drive around your local community, especially in more urban environments, there's construction that is always going on. And so construction is certainly an area where the utilization of drones and the use cases of drones is growing at a very rapid pace. More and more construction companies are now starting to incorporate drone usage into what they're doing. Some are hiring drone pilots full time in order to be part of their construction companies. Oftentimes they contract that work out to drone service providers. I talked about the drone services side of things earlier, but construction is one category. Another category is infrastructure and transportation. It wasn't several years ago, I believe, the current administration passed a large bill around infrastructure. Obviously, there's investment that's happening in that world, but drones are very capable and ultimately very useful in helping to map certain parts of infrastructure, whether it's utility lines, whether it's towers, things along those lines. And so you're seeing a large explosion of drone usage in those particular categories as well. So those are two very, very large industries that come to mind where drones are being used at a very, very large rate.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Dr. McDonald, where do you see the eye care industry in the next 3 to 5 years? And how will the ABO and NCLE certs be a part of that growth?
The ABO NCLE is the basis. It's become the licensing exam in a number of states that require licensure. But now the corporate providers, all of the Walmart, CVS, large corporate entities understand that it can become quite expensive when you're doing things with untrained people that have to be redone on a regular basis. So we're preparing these students for a much easier transition into the world, and not just to do specific tasks, to have a broader understanding. A lot of potential.
Absolutely. And again, I keep going back to the whole theme of SETI, creating revenue streams. And that is definitely, each of you have certainly proven that. So Brad, I'm going to go back to you because we do have question comment um, in our chat session. And first and foremost, I want to say I'm sure that everybody on this call, our prayers are going out to all those that were affected by Helene and the upcoming for Milton. So I'm sure that drone use will be very much in use by insurance companies. So Brad, if you wanted to touch base on that, because that is a happening real time right now to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Insurance is definitely a large part of how drones are utilized nowadays for a variety of different reasons to ultimately, assess damage with an aerial point of view. You can get a very thorough understanding of what certain damage to property, whether it's auto, boat, homes, commercial buildings. There's a variety of things that drones can enhance and provide valuable insights to insurance adjusters and others to get insights into that. In addition, beyond the insurance side, drones are being deployed in a way to really help accelerate search and rescue operations, which I would say from a more of a humanity point of view has been extremely valuable. We know the devastation that Helene caused in terms of the death toll and other things, but what you haven't seen necessarily yet is, how many lives were saved by the ability for them to fly drones to areas that they could not get people to because roads were blocked, because bridges collapsed and other things. And so they're now able to deploy drones to be able to get, an aerial point of view to be able to understand what the terrain looks like, what that situation looks like, so they can get information back to first responders that ultimately can then use that information to determine how to prioritize their decisions, how to basically access, difficult to access areas where people are in need. So both on the insurance side and search and rescue side, drones are being used very heavily in disaster relief efforts.
And drones can be, like you said, used for simple things like delivering food, but then on the serious side, like you just said, like one of my employees was heavily affected by Helene. Pretty much the whole house has to be rebuilt, new roof, all new floors, furniture, trees down, can't cars can't get out, cars can't come in, but drones can, and that helps expedite the process. So we think about the seriousness of the impact that we as continuing educators, and no matter what you choose to add as an additional revenue stream, you directly, your unit is making an impact on our society. Our society, whether you like it or not, is changing with the things that we have to offer, how we offer them. And I was always told, don't be afraid to change because whether you like it or not, it's coming. So we have to embrace it. And that's what we're doing. So, Warren, I'm going to go back to you. Which certification would you recommend in what order, the ABO or the NCLE? Or do you recommend taking them both to be totally qualified? What would you recommend?
Betty, the initial certification needs to be the ABO exam.
Mhm.
There are far more people wearing spectacles than contact lenses. But I don't believe in being half of anything. I believe both certifications are extremely valuable.
I agree with you. And, as an employer, if somebody comes to me, if I get a stack of resumes, which I get resumes all the time, you have to have a weeding process. What education do they have? Do they have the certification? Have they been working in the industry and they want to get certified? And if they have, if they don't have that, and then I get other resumes that have that, of course, I'm going to go to the person who has taken their job as serious enough as to be certified so they can move from state to state. So that I agree with you totally. Um, let's see here. Mike, if you had to pick like the top couple of jobs that show the most growth in the cannabis industry, are there a couple that you would suggest? Because I know you had mentioned on one of your slides, just start with one or two courses.
Yes, Betty, great question. And I also like to make a comment, from Brad's perspective, as you talked about the hurricane component piece. Drones have been critical here in California with CAL FIRE and being able to monitor fire situations, as well as from the insurance side, but from a recovery as well as wind and weather, as well as lines and building front lines and those types of things. Many lives and houses and homes have been saved here in California. So drones are impacting many places. And I bring that up because some of the leading jobs within cannabis, whether it's the agriculture side, which is definitely going to continue to increase. And Betty, you touched on this, before, is that many of those with land or farms are constantly looking for agritourism or other ways to supplement or to modify crops that they had been growing or livestock that they have had, and laws have changed and it's become either complicated or not as profitable, and they're looking for different industry pieces. And cannabis and hemp is a great industry from an agriculture standpoint to get approved for. So the agriculture side and the cultivation side, both indoor and outdoor, is vital. And I will bring up, Brad touched this on one of his slides, is agriculture drones are utilized within the cannabis industry on a tremendous amount, both in the agriculture side for monitoring fields and growing, but also from a security and protection to be able to monitor those that might be trying to damage or steal or competition, those types of things, as well as drones are utilized because it's a cash component piece from the business side. Drones quite often follow the cash deposits that are being done. And so there's drone operators that the cannabis industry hires to be able to utilize both on staff or through contracted firms. But agriculture cultivation is definitely one of the leading, but the manufacturer, the packaging, and bud tender, if somebody's looking to just have supplemental income, many people have bartended or waited tables throughout their careers, many of us in the hospitality side. The bud tender is a great opportunity, and I've seen bud tenders in some states, such as Colorado, making $50 to $60 an hour with tips. So they can also be lucrative supplemental fields that you can add to your income. But so that should cover your question, Betty.
I appreciate that, Mike. And I've been monitoring our time. So I'm going to wrap up here because, we know you all allotted 1 hour for your time. So with that, I would like to once again thank our sponsors for making SETI 2024 success, and our partnerships with our speakers, our partners such as you, or potential partners. We together make it happen. I learned a long time ago I can't do everything by myself. My staff can't do everything by themselves. So that's why we form alliances to make ourselves better, even working with fellow schools together. So if you, as you're listening to any one of our presentations, if you would like a special presentation about a certain topic given to your community, your leads, if you just contact us, we will be happy to provide a custom webinar for you, for your school, for your organization. And with that, I want to invite everyone to attend our last session for today, which is 3 to 4, and it is on WIOA Workforce Panel. I hope you will enjoy it. And again, if you're listening to this recording and you weren't able to make it in person, we thank you for listening either way. And just let your brain spin about, hey, I could add this, I could do that, I could help my community more. That's what we're all here for. We're not in competition. We're here to help one another. And I'm going to look at the chat box one more time. Okay. Thank you all for sharing your comments. And yes, we'll see you guys at 3 o'clock, and you all take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.